Hey everyone! Today I'll be reviewing and swatching the Zebra Clickart Knock pens. Currently there are 48 shades total, which you can purchase individually or in a variety of sets depending on your preferred color scheme. These pens come in a sleek, white plastic body with colored tips to tell them apart. An interesting feature of these pens is that they have a 0.6mm felt tip bullet nib, similar to a marker, but has the retracting capability like a ballpoint or gel pen. This mechanism offers a convenient option for writing, doodling, or coloring without the hassle of a cap. Although these pens do not include a clip, they do have a built-in stopper that prevents the pen from rolling away. These pens are formulated with a new and innovative ink that absorbs moisture from the air to keep the ink from drying out. The ink is a water-based formula that is feather-resistant and claims to be bleed-proof. However, you'll want to avoid using these on thin and cheap paper and avoid going over the same spot over and over again, as they're more likely to bleed through. The pens do have quite a bit of ghosting, especially on thinner paper. If you color over the same area repeatedly, I do find that surprisingly, there's even ghosting on thick 160 GSM paper. One thing that I am a little confused about is that Zebra claims that these are not water resistant. But when I try to use these with a water brush, they don't seem to budge, which is something you'll probably want to keep in mind. Moving on to my personal pros and cons of these pens, starting with the pros. There's something about this ink formulation that's very unique. It's a little hard to describe, but I've noticed that the ink dries to a smooth, matte, almost acrylic paint-like finish. Although these are water-based inks, they don't pool and streak like how most other water-based pens do. This is definitely more noticeable when you color in a larger area as opposed to just writing or drawing in a single line. Here I'm comparing the Zebra Clickart to a Uni Posca paint pen. After the paint pen has dried, it has a very smooth and even matte finish, which I find very similar to how these Clickart markers look after they've dried. Of course, the Clickart markers aren't going to be completely opaque or cover up the dots and lines like the paint marker would, but in terms of evenness of the ink, I'd say that they are very reminiscent of one another. Because of this, these are some of my favorite pens to use for faux calligraphy because it doesn't appear darker or uneven in certain areas when I cross over them multiple times. It just has an even wash of color in the end. However, I do want to clarify that although these may look similar to a paint pen on light paper, these Clickart markers do not show up on black paper as a paint pen would. I'm also comparing the Zebra Clickart to a few popular water-based markers on the market, such as a Tombow dual brush pen, Zebra Mildliner, and a Crayola Super tips marker. As you can see, the other three markers show pooling and streakiness, while the Zebra Clickart looks flat and even. I haven't seen any other marker perform this way before, and I'm really a huge fan of how it looks. This probably has to be my favorite feature of these pens as it's very unique and it's just not something that I see every day. I really hope that the footage is doing it justice and that you're able to see it as well. Moving on, my second pro would definitely have to be the shade selection. Now, if you would have asked me what I thought of the color range last spring when I first purchased these, I would have thought it was okay and nothing special. However, that was before I realized that they had a 12-color pale pastel set, which I picked up last fall. With the addition of these 12 pale pastel shades, I can easily say now that the color selection is fantastic. They have the standard primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. They have deep, smoky jewel tone shades. They have bright and tropical shades. And now they have soft and delicate pastel colors, which I definitely felt like this line was needing. If I had just one little request for a possible future expansion, I personally would love to see more neutral, earthy tones. But that's just me being picky. Aside from that though, I think that this 48 color selection is very impressive and very generous, so I'm definitely a huge fan of that as well. The third pro would of course be the retractability of these pens. Like I mentioned, I've had the majority of these for about a year now, and I haven't noticed a single one drying out, despite these pens being capless. I was hesitant at first whether or not these pens would even make it to a year, but I'm so pleased to see that they haven't had any issues. In terms of storage, I do keep these sideways when they are not in use, so that may also contribute to them not drying out as quickly. And for anyone who is curious, there's no special door or mechanism that covers the nib when it's retracted. I know in the fountain pen world, most if not all retractable fountain pens have a little flap or door mechanism that encloses the tip when retracted. However, that is not the case with these pens, so that is also something that you may want to keep in mind. My final pro is a very minuscule one, but I do like the minimal and simple packaging. It's very aesthetically pleasing with the clean white body, and something about the colored accents is really cute to me. Now let's move on to what I consider to be cons. First off, unfortunately, goes back to the packaging. These pens do not include any shade names on the bodies, so when you have this many pens, it can get pretty difficult to tell them apart. These do come with a sticker that has a number on it, but the numbers seem completely random and have no rhyme or reason to them. It's by no means a deal breaker for me, but I thought it was worth mentioning just because that is something that I do really appreciate, is when brands include the shade names on their pens. My second con is likely just personal preference, but I kinda wish they would have just included a clip on these. It's almost like they played around with the idea and started to make one, and then just kind of forgot about it halfway. Plus, it would serve more of a purpose if it was an actual clip rather than just this little stopper, because then you could at least clip it onto your journals or onto a pocket. But again, like the shade names, it's not a deal breaker for me. The third and final con has to be that sometimes the markers can feel a tad bit scratchy. Given the nature of these pens with a felt tip material, a relatively fine 0.6mm size, and having a bullet tip, it's safe to assume that these markers lean a little bit on the scratchy side. Personally, I don't find that it's a bothersome or extremely noticeable type of scratchiness, and depending on the type of paper you use, it may be more or less noticeable. However, if you're sensitive to this type of tactile feel or sound, you may want to pass on these. Overall, I would definitely recommend giving these pens a try. I say the pros much outweigh the cons in my personal opinion. These can be purchased online through many different retailers at many different price points. Let me know if you have these and what you think of them. Or let me know if you're planning or not planning to pick these up. I'd love to know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.